Hey everybody. Teresa, can you full screen me? Hey everybody, welcome to MicroMania Film Festival 2020's Micro-Indigenous Panel Discussion. First, I will just do the usual run-through thanks to our sponsors, New Hotness Media Institute, Indie Vice, Argle Bargle, the game where you insult your fans, and Free Agent. Special thanks to Black Girl Film Club, Mystic Road Films, Caramax Studio, Alicia Ripley, our panel hosts, and all MicroMania Film Festival filmmakers and judges. Thank you so much. And I would like to welcome, firstly, although the 2020 incarnation of Micro-Indigenous is streaming exclusively online, the co-sponsors of Micro-Indigenous Native Spirit Film Festival, based in London, UK, and Micromania Film Festival, based in Buffalo, New York, would like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, in particular, the Haudenosaunee, whose people in particular, the Seneca Nation, continue to occupy their ancestral lands in Western New York State. We, Micromania Film Festival and Native Spirit Film Festival, look forward to launching the Micro-Indigenous channel during Native Spirit Film Festival in October, who will also run a Micro-Indigenous film panel. I apologize for that terrible mispronunciation. Terry will correct me. I want to welcome filmmaker Terry Jones, JACK BELHUMEUR, and Best Micro Animation 2020 Award winner, Meli Tuquota, and also our wonderful, generous hosts, Anishinabe Mohawk, writer and producer, and former CBC radio producer, Kim Wheeler. So I leave this discussion to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lucia. Thanks. Before Lucia came on, before we came live, I was telling these guys how bossy I am, and to adjust their mics and adjust their sounds and turn your iPad sideways so we can have like really nice images and good sound. So I'm Kim Wheeler. I'm actually Anishinabe and Mohawk, and Lucia said we would correct her pronunciations, so I'm doing that. I am coming to you from Treaty 1 territory. It's the heart of Turtle Island. It's muddy water. Colonially, it's known as Winnipeg, Canada. If you haven't watched the short films we're about to discuss, you'll be even more intrigued to tune in and watch them after this panel. And you should, because they're all so different. But I'm going to ask these fine gentlemen to introduce themselves, which films they have in the festival, and where are you guys broadcasting from today? We'll start with Terry.
Hey, Nyaweskano, everybody. My name is Terry Jones. I'm Seneca Nation Wolf Clan from, we're located about 40 miles south of Niagara Falls. I have actually 4 micro short films. One is called Wake, which was a collaboration with 3 other filmmakers. I made it in film school at Syracuse University. The other one was Empire State, which I collaborated with my Indian friend. He's from India, and then there was American Indian in India. I collaborated with him on that. And then there was Geek Squad, which I think is what we're going to screen later on after the panel. It's How I Lost My Indian Name is the tagline. And the other one is Ode to the Nine, which was a short film which uses my eye blinks to tell a story. So every time I blink, the visuals change. And oh no, that's Geek Squad. Sorry. Ode to the Nine is influenced by John Raffman. He's an experimental film festival or filmmaker, and his whole thing was using the Google camera, which has 9 eyes, and just in terms of he harnessed all the images that from throughout the world that took really interesting photographs. So I did this thing where I was like my own Google hard drive, and how capturing all these historical and contemporary Native experiences are in my own personal hard drives, and what that will mean to the future generations.
Thank you. Ellie, why don't you tell us where you're broadcasting from and what your film is about?
Okay, Bulvinaka, Malolele. My name is Meli Tuquota Jr. I'm broadcasting all the way from the tiny islands of Fiji, the South Pacific. It's 8 o'clock. I just had my morning tea, so I'm ready to go. And yeah, my short film in this film festival is titled "You, the Choice of My Parents," which is based on a poem by one of the Pacific's eminent poets, Konai Helu Theban. And yeah, it's my first digital animated short.
And it won Best Micro Animation. How does that make you feel?
I am very stoked. I'm very happy. I didn't think I'd win anything at all. I was actually, it's funny, just submitting it and having it accepted into film festivals around the world was a win for me personally, because this is the first time for me. I didn't actually plan to make this. I didn't actually plan to submit it to film festivals. I had no budget. I just I used Film Freeway, and I submitted it to film festivals that had like a low barrier of entry cost-wise, $5, $10 US, which for me is like double. So, that was $20 Fijian. Some film festivals, they'll be like $30 or $60 US. I'll pass on that. But I was very glad that whichever film festivals that I entered it in, it was accepted. Majority of them anyways. We won't talk about the ones that weren't accepted.
Okay, we're going to talk more about your film and your process a bit later, but let's get to Jack. And Jack, do you want to introduce yourself? We're going to get you to unmute your mic first. There we go. Oh,
me?
Mute, unmute.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, everyone. So my name's Jack Belhumeur. I recently finished a film that I had screened at several different festivals around the world. The film is entitled "Respect Your Elders, Chum." What it was is a project that I made with an elder of mine, my wife's grandfather. We wrote the film together. We both acted in it, and the main theme of the film was respecting your elders, and it also touches on the topic of substance abuse and its effect on communities. So that's what I've been working on. I finished it last year, and I was lucky enough to screen it around at a lot of festivals, which is where I met Terry. So that was great experience there. So it's good to see you again, my friend. So that's the film that I've been pushing around there. But I do have some more films that I am working on, and I just finished a project that I shot in Berlin, Germany.
Oh, do you want to talk a bit about that?
So I went to Berlin to the Berlinale, Berlin International Film Festival with my film "Respect Your Elders, Chum." I was part of a delegation with Wapakoni, which is a mobile indigenous film studio. So we all went to the Berlinale and we played our films at the Canadian Embassy in Berlin, Germany. And we spoke to large crowds regarding filmmaking, indigenous communities, our impact as filmmakers. So that was a really great experience to be able to bring that to such a larger audience, especially at such a well-known festival. It really helped me feel appreciated as an indigenous filmmaker to be accepted at an event like that.
Why did you choose the Wapakoni Mobile to make your film?
It's a great story. So I used to watch a show on CBC called Reflections, where they play films by Canadian filmmakers. So I was always interested in that show, and I contacted one of the producers, and she was very kind, gave me lots of advice, and told me where I could touch up on, and she pointed me in the direction of Wapakoni. So as I said, I made this wrote the film with an elder of mine. So the day after I wrote that film, I drove into the city of Thunder Bay, and I had the script on my passenger seat in my car. And as I pulled into the city, I seen the Wapakoni Mobile film trailer. So I peeled in there with my script in hand, and they said, hey, yeah, let's make this film. And it was just fate, really. It was amazing, because now the film is played at almost all of the Indigenous film festivals that's out there, and many others as well outside of the Indigenous community. So I think it's had a great impact, and it was just a really great experience to work with Wapakoni.
Amazing. Was that your first film?
No, I've been making short films since 2007. I started making films using 16mm and 8mm film. So, but this was my best work this far, I would say, working with Wapakoni. They really helped me improve on like technical issues with my filmmaking, such as sound. And so it wasn't my first film, but it was definitely, I would say it's my greatest work yet, just having that mentorship and leadership to follow.
Right. Terry, I was watching a bit of the panel that you were on yesterday and heard that you had films accepted into around 60 different festivals, 60 times. What's your secret?
Secret.
Besides making great films.
It's so I made all of those films that have played in film festivals at Syracuse University Film School. So they were pretty much just class assignments. So of course they're short. They're like probably less than 10 minutes long. But of course, you know, in film school, everything's critiqued. So by the time you get done, you feel like you're about this big, and you're not even sure if there's any audience for my films. So I started submitting them, and then through the process, I kind of learned how film festivals work. So even though you might have 5 fantastic short films, they're only really going to accept 1. So I kind of had to learn to line up my what films that I thought were the strongest, like in a Kleenex box. So the first one was Soup for My Brother, and that was accepted at the Imaginative Film Festival in Toronto, which is the largest Indigenous film festival in the world. And to see, you know, and it's a short documentary that I made with my father. We made it with no budget. We shot it in 3 hours. And it played in the Toronto International Film Festival screen, so it was huge. And it was funny, it was because it was in Canada, it was in the international shorts. So it was shorts from America and Australia. There might have been a New Zealand one in there as well. And you'd look at the credits, and it was like Film Foundation, so, you know, all the support. And then mine was just a film by Terry Jones. And when people watched it, they really said it didn't need, you know, like a sound design. It didn't need music. It kind of spoke that authentically, I think, to the audience. And the very next day, the Canadian Filmmaker Distribution Center in Toronto offered me to be my distributor. And right now, they're currently a distributor of 5 of my films, my short films.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you find, you know, like in the Indigenous music community, right? A lot of our musicians don't have label support. So they don't get to be played on mainstream radio stations, and they don't have, you know, a publicity machine behind them to push them up and raise them up. Do you find that that is happening with the Indigenous filmmaking community as well?
It's a little bit harder being, it's all a matter of what side of the border you're on, the US-Canadian border. There's a lot of, so when I went to Toronto, I saw these opportunities for mentorship and funding, but they were mostly open to only Canadian Indigenous filmmakers. In America, we pretty much just have the Sundance Institute. I know Tribeca has I think they have a Native program, and the LA Skins Fest as well has. I think they're doing a lot of with writing, script writing, show running. But so there's not a lot of opportunity to get your work out there. And we don't have in America, we don't have APTN, the Aboriginal People's Television Network. So it's a matter of like, well, how do you get yourself shown? You can put it on your YouTube channel or your Vimeo channel, but that doesn't mean you're going to get the traffic. And same with MicroMania. The films that the channel itself, I think on platforms have over 200,000 views. And I think I have 5 or 6 films on that platform, and they've received about 2,000 views, which is a lot more than had I tried to do it on my own.
Yeah. And so, Meli, you, before we went live, you were saying, we were talking about your short film, and it's very first one you've ever made. We'll get to that in a second, but I just want to follow up with Terry, what he said. And you've been out there pushing your film yourself on your own social media channels.
Yeah, well, this is actually, it's funny, it's kind of accidental that I was pushing my film just little bit by a little bit. I didn't know that I was building my own audience, mostly through people from Fiji who follow me. But I'd been building up this audience without realizing it, because I was posting updates of where my film was accepted, and people, they'd congratulate me and they'd retweet it. And so that was me building my little corner of my filmmaking corner. So I was actually glad that in hindsight that I had a sort of an inbuilt audience by the time I've sort of reached this point. It's not a lot, but hey, it's somebody watching me. So I'm really glad for that.
Yeah. So why did you want to make a film, Meli?
So this is really interesting. I am a graphic designer and animator for a while. I think last year. For that time, I've been doing it as a job. It was just a job to me, and only a few years ago, when I realized that, wait a minute, I've been doing all of this for other people, I can do it for myself. I know it's a bit of a silly realization for some, but for me, it was somewhat mind-blowing that I could be doing creative stuff for myself personally, and so it was from there that I decided to write a list of things that I'd like to make. Cool. I titled it cool things I'd like to make. And so at the top of that I'm very interested in Pacific. It's called tapa patterns. They have these all these different South Pacific countries. They print these patterns on tapa cloth, which is mulberry, like different types of trees, where they beat it into paper thin quality, and so they put these nice, really lovely patterns on it. And different countries have different patterns, and so I was really interested in learning about my mom. My mom's from Tonga, from Pangai Ha'apai, and for me, I'm in Fiji. I don't really know that much about my Tongan side, and so straight off the bat, I wanted to try and both learn something about the Tongan culture, Tongan tapa designs, or in Tongan it's called ngatu, but I also at the same time I wanted to make something cool. So it was quite a convenient a marriage where I did research on Tongan patterns, and then I made an animated short film using the skills that I'd learned over the years, and so culminated to what we have today. So I'm very happy with the outcome for that.
Right. And your film is based on a poem, right? On spoken word?
Yes, sorry. It's a poem by a poet. She's a Tongan poet, Konai Heluthaman, and she's written a lot of great poems. And in Fiji and around the Pacific as well, in high school they study some of the poems. When I was in high school, we studied that one particular poem, "You, the Choice of My Parents," which is about sort of the perspective of a person who's going through an arranged marriage. And I learned a lot of things in school, but that one stuck. It was interesting that over the years, that kind of stuck in my head. And when I was thinking about when I was thinking about what I can do with in terms of animation, that poem popped up, and I realized that it was the perfect delivery vehicle for my animation, both because of very interesting words and the way it is written, and the fact that it was it's a Tongan poem, and I wanted to do something like an ode to my mom's cultural history, and so I felt that putting the two together worked well.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful little short film. I'm really curious as to why each of you chose short film as your medium. Before you answer that, though, I'm just going to remind everybody that Terry is on the reserve with reserve Wi-Fi. So if he cuts out, we know that that's why. And Meli is in Fiji with island Wi-Fi, I guess. And because it's early, he has a strong connection. But if they cut out, that's what's going on, and they'll jump back in. Yeah. So let's start with you, Jack. Why did you choose short film as your platform?
So basically, it was a thing about affordability, because as I mentioned earlier, I began filmmaking using 16 millimeter. I mean, and that would cost like $100 for a roll, and then you have to make every shot count. It's not like the filmmaking we do today, where you can review the footage immediately. You just really had to nail it, or you would fail it. So it could be costly to make those mistakes shooting 16 millimeter film, and so it was just it was affordable for me to make films that were like 5 to 7 minutes in length, or even 1 minute shorts, just because the materials and the time and everything else that it took to do it back then for me. But now I just continue to make the short forms, because I think that's the way the world is. Nobody really has the time to sit there and watch your 60-hour film or 60-minute film. They'd rather take 5 minutes and maybe, I mean, that's the way the world is. Everything's being shortened, abbreviated, and it's no different in film. Like the theaters are suffering because less people have the time in their day to go and watch a full-length movie. But you can say just as much in a short film. It's just all about how you tell your story visually, and how creative you are in your writing. So it's a challenge, and I love that.
For sure. Terry, what about you? Why did you choose this medium?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it was sort of, they were class assignments, but there's a saying that how you do the little things and how you do the big things. So for me, it was a matter of like giving yourself that time constraint of say 10 minutes to be able to, with short films, there tends to be a twist at the end. So, you don't have a lot of time for character development. Everything, it's a little bit, I think, a lot more challenging to do a short film because everything means something that could be casual and long form. Can say like putting a red glass on the table might be casual in a long form, but in a short film you have to make sure that means something. Are you setting something up for something at the end? What I really like about doing short film with that twist is in the end it can be a lot more profound. You can do a build up, and then in the end, for me with my short films, they're kind of called profound or poetic. And in the end, they kind of like haunt you in the end. They kind of get you to keep thinking. And, my overall dream I would love to take a try at long form. But of course that takes money. It's not something you can do self-financing. It's great, in the beginning, in terms of like film and even video, there was marginalized people really didn't have access to the technology because of the cost. And now with cell phones, I mean, I have an iPhone 11 that can shoot, 4K, 24 frames a second. And, but you still need to have good sound, so hopefully somewhere along the way, you can probably make long form affordable using your iPhone.
Cool. Meli?
For me, I echo the sentiments of Terry and Jack in that, affordability, ease of use. You can get something out quickly. So for me, I was lucky that I have a computer and I already have the skills to do animation. I had some ideas of like, oh yeah, let's shoot a live action short film. A, I don't have a camera. B, I have some friends who do have some equipment, but you have to rustle up the people, and so for me, this was just an easier way to get something done on my time quickly and very affordably. A crew of one, and just pay myself in noodles during lunch. Yeah.
Nice. Terry, you'd mentioned that having the with short films, you have to have a twist at the end. And your short film, and I'm sorry if I pronounce this one wrong, but Gixwood, How I Lost My Indian Name, it seemed like it's such a sad story, but it has that button at the end, right?
Call it, oh, go ahead.
And yeah, when I burst out laughing. I was like, okay, this made me feel better. But how much of that story is true?
That's it's actually documentary. It's all true. The kind of response I call, people say it makes you cry and laugh, because I have you right at the edge of tears, because it's a traumatic story, but it's also that little twist at the end makes you laugh, in the end, especially with my last line. It says, I hope when I die, the creator has a sense of humor. And, regardless, I think, of all of our experiences, natives, and for me, my experience, natives in general, you can laugh in the most trying times. You find humor in some way or another. You have something to laugh about. And so I didn't want it to make a depressing film, even though it was all based on it's all based on fact.
Yeah, and as Indigenous people, right, we use humor a lot to deal with our trauma and our tragedies.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same for the people of Fiji, Meli?
Oh, before we had joined, I had explained something called Fiji time, where people are late. And everyone else said, yeah, we got that same thing as well. So I think it's a fairly common theme, both with don't smile, Jack. This is not a dig at you. I was just speaking in general. And so both being, we come at our own time, but also you're right, in humor as well. We share a lot of similarities with regard with how we treat everyday life. And for us Fijians, we have this thing called, we love our inside jokes. So if a friend and I have a story and something funny came out, we'd have a nickname for it. And then whenever we see each other on the street, we'll call each other with that nickname. And it's funny only for us, only between us. But the fact that, we find humor in our stories, and we love to bring that across every time wherever we go. It's I think it's a very key factor of us Indigenous people.
Yeah. Jack, the film that is actually screening at MicroMania is your film called Army Manimation. And so I was watching it, and it starts off, it has like this jovial music and it's going along, and I'm like really digging it. And then I start to realize that maybe I shouldn't be enjoying this as much as I am, because it's about war. Maybe you can explain a little bit about what your film is for those who haven't seen it yet, and what was the message you were trying to get across with it?
Well, with this film, it was kind of just more of an experimental project. So the friend that I made it with, David Eno, he's from Edmonton, Alberta. Him and we went to Edmonton Film School together in 2007. Our instructor was a stop motion animator. So he's worked on some Hollywood productions doing the stop motion, like animations. So we kind of just did this film as an experiment and kind of to pay homage to our mentor, because he taught us how to make films, but we knew his skill as a stop motion animator. So we just wanted to try it for ourselves. So we put together that set that you see. That's actually on top of a dresser that's like, 4 feet by 2 feet. And we just were playing with toys. It was just we were just trying to have a good time. There was no underlying message or anything like that we were trying to get across. It was just it was really just about having fun and experimenting and learning from that. And it actually turned out really good, I think. And this is the 6th film festival selection for that 1 minute stop motion. I mean, that's pretty good considering we just did it on the weekend just because we wanted to hang out.
Oh, that's amazing. What other film festivals has it been in?
Well, it's pretty good with the children because we've had 2 selections at children's festivals. So I think the kids like it obviously because it's toys and it's like catchy music. So they kind of relate it to a younger audience, but also it's been accepted at other ones that are not specific to children. It's been in some of the indigenous ones. So I can't recall which ones, but it's been in 6 different film festivals now, and just felt really good because we felt like we made our mentor proud.
Oh, that's really sweet. Okay, we're going to actually watch the films right now. So we're going to start with yours, Jack.
Sure.
And then move to Terry's, and we're going to move to Meli's. Before we roll tape, I love using those terms. I'm such a nerd. Is there anything you guys want to say to introduce your film? Jack, Terry?
I'll just say that just enjoy it for what it is. I just think it's a lot of fun, and there's no underlying messages or anything. It was just all about having a good time and playing with toys for me.
Nice. Terry?
This was just sort of backstory, just sort of based on Walter Murch. He wrote this book on editing and using eye blades. It's called The Blink of an Eye is the book. But we read an essay or a chapter in his book, and in that, that's what this film is about. I explored the idea of telling a story, how you talk, and then you blink, and then she said, so I try to use that sort of moving the image with each eye blink. People sometimes don't pick it up. In the end, I'll tell them, they're like, I was wondering what it was that made it. It felt organic in some ways, but you'll all see when you see it.
Cool. And Meli?
I have just coming into my short film with eyes wide open and check it out.
Okay, so when we watch these, I want you guys to also think about the best advice you can give to young filmmakers out there. So you have some time to formulate an answer. Yay! Thank you. I think we're gonna stream them again. Next one. Sorry. Stay tuned. It's coming up.
My Seneca Indian name is Gik Squad. My American name is Terry Jones. Indian grandmother, and no other Seneca has that name. Your name is given to you when you are a baby, and throughout your life, you may need to ask for help. And your Indian name tells the Creator who you are. And when you die, the Creator will ask you, what is your name, and what is your Indian song? Gik Squad is a name that I gave myself. My real Indian name was kidnapped by my aunt. My mom didn't grow up with her mother and father. Her and her 6 brothers and sisters were given up to an Indian residential boarding school. One day, my grandmother met an Irish guy, and they had a daughter together. When I was born, my grandmother was given my name. She kept it for me. But one day, my grandmother died. During her wake, my mother and I opened her dresser drawer, and among her papers was an envelope with our Indian names on it. A week later, we went back to settle her things, but her room was empty, including her dresser drawers. We asked my aunt where my grandma's things were, and instead of answers, we got attacked. That was a few since, and my aunt still has our Indian names. If I meet the Creator before I get my name back, I only hope he'll understand and have a sense of humor.
Aku ke ha'o mo wala fihu mo ngatu. Pea alaha mai ai lolo o ku tākai agi koe. Pea koho fofonga o ku whaka ofu ofa o hange koe u whetuu o langi tawhitonga. Hena e whili i koe e he kuongo mātua. Te ke whake mai kia ki naua ai koloa mo ongongo lelei. Hena ake ako i muri pea iai ho o motoka mo tuape. Ka aku ikai te ke ilo i au tamasi i bilinisi. He ko au o kulahi taha he whamiri pe au te eki ai ke unofo mo hatangata. O kua kau lelei ki he o ngahi palani ki he kahao. Ka oku ikai te ke ilo i au mo kuloto mo oni. Ko hoku fofonga o ku whakapuliki aki a eku talango fua ki a te koe. Pea ko eku mali atu o ku hai eku ofa ki a te koe. Ka oku ikai te ulava ke whai a hoku loto. Ko whoki atuen ai whai whekau i he osi hono whai e mali. Ko kamata ke whai a taalonga mai whaiwa. Ne wo ngoi whai ngata ia o hange te umate. I hono whai ai whatongia ke whaamiri, mo e anga whakafonua. He oku mahu inga ngeia, i hono whai a haku loto. Pea whakatatau ia ki he loto whakaanaua i he potutahi momoko. Koe matātahi whai kehe o e whaamiri ko eni. O kua wongo i mo oni, o ku ikai te ukau au ke whaamiri ni. Ko eku ofa, o ku haia i he lava hono whai a haku whatongia. Ka ko hoku loto, o ku mamao au pitoia mei heni. He eku kei pipiki pe ia he fuutoa, o ku talitali ki ai kakai kehe. He koe apia o eku whangakui. Te uwhanau i hafoha kia te koe, ke hoko atu e laine ho whamili. Pea ke hoko atu ai tuku whakaholo a whamili ki he kahau. Ka i he lava hano whai a hoku whatongia, ko hoku lau maalie e whoki peia ke api na aku tupu hake ai. Pea he ikai te ke toe ilo mai au. Tuku kehe pe ai tangi mai ai ulu ilo o ku tupu he matātai.
Wow. Thank you guys so much for sharing your work with us. I mean, they're all so different, right? But I think like as Indigenous people, we come from a place where we use our different mediums to, to tell our stories and to push boundaries. How do you think our art making can influence change? Especially like around, I guess, the Indigenous settler relationship, if that makes sense. Like we never had the space to tell our stories before. We've had to create that space. We've had to take that space. Do you guys see your work as continuing that?
I believe so. I think we're really at an early part of our own kind of cinematic culture. Because if there's a long history of Hollywood, and even in India, they've got their own version of that. And I think like with film festivals like Imaginative, and in the United States, I attended Los Angeles Red Nation Film Festival, and their motto is "We are the new Hollywood." I think we're in the early stages, but we're definitely building up to being a larger presence in cinema. And I think the relationships are just only getting stronger, and we're coming to the forefront and being leaders in these productions. Slowly but surely, I think we're coming up.
Yeah. Terry, you're not.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sorry. Go ahead, Meli.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment also, because from my point of view, because I have an animation background, in the South Pacific, there is not much in way of both original films as well as even less animation. And I feel like we're, especially with the recent increase of access to technology for the different countries, we are just now starting to get our feet wet into the arena of filmmaking, and in my case, animation. And I'm hoping that we can sort of build upon this, like how Taika Waititi said that we are the original storytellers, and we've got so much stories to share, so many stories. And I'm really looking forward to the next 10 years where this sort of like builds momentum, the snowball rolling down the hill, so to speak, so that more and more people will see our work and be inspired to do their own work based on what we've done so far. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Terry, do you have something to add?
Yeah, this is just in terms of art in general. When I was in film school, they gave us this essay, or they said, today we're going to look at art, and it was all Western art. And I was like, well, what were the indigenous people of the world? What were they doing? They must have been doing art as well. And so the following week, I was still angry because, but then we read this. Walter Benjamin was a German essayist, and there he talks about art I forget what it is, art in the age of mechanical production. So really, what that says is that there was a point in time, say like the Mona Lisa only had it only existed in one place, and then when you were able to reproduce it, it ended up getting this thing they call cult value or exhibition value. So then I started to think, I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. So Native people or indigenous people, all of our objects had function, that I know of. And I'm not speaking for all indigenous peoples, but I feel like, when you talk about a lacrosse stick, or you talk about a snow snake, or you talk about a water drum, yeah, they could sit in a gallery and say like, this has exhibition value, but to us it has a function. And it's not until recently then that we've sort of got into ourselves to being able to create things for aesthetics, and that's where so then you have your traditional, Western art or traditional indigenous art. Now film and video is sort of like a new medium. It's a new way of storytelling, or a new way of expressing yourself. So in some ways, when people are like, Terry, do you want a booth to sell your stuff? I sell DVDs. I used to sell DVDs of my films, but it was a different sort of animal compared to the beading and the carving and stone carving. I felt like film was a different beast. And so so growing up, I never really had role model, native or indigenous filmmaker role models. And I thought it was sort of a curse, but now in the age that we're living in now with technology, we more or less have our own machete. We can sit there and we can carve our own path through this, through this landscape. I mean, imagine, without, going to film school, sort of like, well, everybody's dream is to make it in Hollywood, but could you imagine being a non-native filmmaker? How do you make yourself stand out? Especially when it's a dominant culture story. It's like every story's been told, up until before the pandemic, it's like it was just one sequel after another, and there's a lot of stories out there, and I'm hoping that we get our chance to tell them.
Yeah, I always tell my friends when we're doing new projects and stuff that the rules are, there are no rules, right? We're here to make our own rules. Meli, this was your first project, your first film. What's next for you? Oh, we don't have your...
Sorry, I've unmuted it. I've got it.
Thank you.
As I've mentioned before, this was my first time doing anything personal in terms of being creative, and it's sort of like lit a spark that now I actually want to keep going, and so I'm actually sort of in pre-production of another animated short film. You can see a pattern here. It's an animated short film that this time I want to tell a story in my homeland, Fiji. So that's all. That's a little preview of what I'm working on now. It's a work in progress, but I'm definitely excited to share it with the world once it's done, further down the line.
Jack, what are you working on next?
So as I mentioned, I shot a film in Berlin. I'm done with the picture editing, but really have some work to do on the sound. That's probably been always my greatest challenge in filmmaking, is the sound. So I'll be working with Wapakoni. They have something called Virtual Studio. So you can work with them on your film online with mentors who will provide you with the advice and suggestions on how they're going to help me make my sound better. So I'm working on that coming October, and I'm also trying to do a mockumentary. So I won't mention too much about it, but I've never made a documentary before. I've always just been kind of a fiction guy, or just narrative stories, traditional filmmaking. I've never done a documentary, so I kind of want to make one, but I'm kind of scared to make documentaries because you have to be very truthful and informed. So I'm going the route of a mockumentary so I can just have fun with it.
Nice. That's
First time for everything.
Yeah. Terry, you said you made your films in film school. I read on your bio you want to do your master's as well?
Yeah, I would like to do my master's, get an MFA. I'm looking into York University in Toronto. I met at Imaginative. I met a couple Indigenous filmmakers who went through their film program, and but right now I had planned on shooting 2 short films this year, but then the pandemic happened, so that kind of went by the wayside. But a week ago, it was announced that I'm taking part in it's called Open Immersion 2, which is a virtual reality lab. That's sponsored by the National Film Board of Canada, the Ford Foundation, and CFC. So there's 6 of us, 3 American. I hate to use that term. We're on this side of the world. 3 of us here and 3 from Canada. We're working together. We're going to be working with mentors and industry leaders to help us actualize our VR projects. And in October, we will be presenting those. I'm assuming virtually, we'll be presenting our proposals to VR industry people at the Imaginative Film Festival in Toronto.
Nice. My daughter actually works for Imaginative as their ability coordinator or disability coordinator. This is her 2nd year there. And then I also do work with Dream Speakers Film Festival in Edmonton. They have their online festival right now, so they're doing workshops and presenting artist showcases. I also work with the Manitowabe Festival, and so their Spirit Visions Film Festival is going to be coming up, I think in September. No, they have a 48-hour film challenge in August, so you guys should, if you want to be part of a 48-hour film challenge. I've also do work with, there was one more I was going to say. Oh my God, I feel so bad all of a sudden. I just did some work with Women in Sports Film Festival, where we presented a film on lacrosse, women in lacrosse, which was a really great film. So if you guys ever get a chance to see it, that's called Keepers of the Game. Dream Speakers Imaginative. Oh, the Indigenous Film Summit right here in Winnipeg. Also, it's, I think, their 3rd year, and their festival is also going online this year. And they're going to have a lot of panels for Indigenous filmmakers. So, yeah, like we're everywhere this year, and we're all online. And so we can, people from around the world can tune in to all these great Indigenous film festivals. So final words. I was going to ask you guys to give a piece of advice, but I think I could just let you guys do your final words. What would you like to say? Plug, share, encourage. Remember I told you to think about this while we were watching your shows?
I'll start off. So to any young filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers of any age, really, just make it. Don't worry about having the fanciest camera, or you're not going to make Dances with Wolves on your first try. So just do what you can with what you've got, and just start right away. Bring your idea to life. No excuses. Just do it.
Hoorah. For me, yeah, I'd say a similar thing, especially in this day and age where we all have access to quite fascinating pieces of technology, aka the phone, the internet, and so there's a lot of opportunities, and I'm speaking as well for myself, a first-time filmmaker, and just having access to all of this has really helped me grow as an individual, as well as just learning. I'm actually taking notes. Both of you two, you're speaking about different things, and I'm like, okay, I'm mentally making note of these things. So I'm learning as I'm going along, and I'm hoping that other people from the Pacific, especially, it's somewhat of a new region when it comes to filmmaking. Well, I mean, Australia and New Zealand, they have their sort of own established little industries, but with the rest of the Pacific, we're kind of like just really brand new at this whole thing. But I'm sort of hoping that this will encourage them to take a step forward and try out something. And as mentioned before, we've got a lot of stories to tell. Get out there and tell them.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, I used to say call myself an image taker, but I had no place to call my own when I lived on territory. And now, especially with YouTube, the technology and the ability to communicate with the outside world is now in the palm of your hands, in good ways and sometimes in bad ways, because in some ways they're time wasters. They can be, but when used properly, it's a great way to. Especially when you want to share your own internal world with the outside world. So I would encourage any young person to, like Jack said, just go for it. Just use your phone. For me, telling stories is usually it's for myself, but then it's my family, it's my community. But then of course I want to invite everybody to the party. So yeah, just learn. And aside from that, you can find more things about my work. My website is called tornjersey.com. It's an anagram of Terry Jones, thanks to Monty Python. So it's tornjerseymedia.com. And then I also have 5 of my short films, including, no, not Geek Squad. I have 5 short films that are on Amazon Prime in the US and the UK. So if you just probably go to the native section and type in Terry Jones, my films will be there.
Amazing. You guys are so much fun. This was a good time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're going to bring
Thank you.
Hey, it's an honor, Kim.
Hey, everybody.
It's been an honor, Kim.
Thank you.
Hi. So firstly,
Hi,
I want to say, Terry, I agree with you. Like, it does feel like every story has been told. I know that I'm sick and tired of seeing the same thing with the same faces everywhere. I hunger for authentic stories from other people that both show our similarities as human beings, as well as the different experiences that other people have dealt with. And Jack, you're absolutely right. Just do it. Show us. We want to see it. And Meli, I think one of the wonderful benefits of panel discussions are just exactly what you said. Not only do we hear about another artist's perspective, their process, but we also learn little kernels and tips, and like hear about different organizations and opportunities that we may not have known of before. So I'm so happy and I'm grateful to each and every one of you for coming on this panel and for trusting your work with me and trusting me with your voice. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. What an honor. Each and every one of you, what an honor. And I hope to have you back. MicroMania is going to be doing content throughout the year. This is not intended to be a one-off singular yearly event, but an exercise in community building and encouragement. Thank you.
Amazing. Miigwech.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Naka, mahalo.